Well, hello everyone, and welcome once again to our second annual Sync Up Conference here at the Jazz and Heritage Center. For those of you who are new here, the Jazz and Heritage Center is a recent acquisition of the Jazz and Heritage Foundation. The foundation, of course, is the nonprofit organization that owns Jazz Fest and uses the proceeds from that amazing event for year-round activities in the areas of education, economic development, and cultural programming. And the foundation's offices are literally right next door on the corner here. And we purchased this building a year ago with the goal of turning it into an education center. And as I mentioned, if any of you were here last week, I had mentioned that before we purchased the building, the air conditioning units and the copper piping and all the other stuff that keeps the place cool were stolen after Katrina, hence the warmness of the temperature. So I appreciate all of you bearing with us as we muddle through. A couple of very quick announcements. As you know, we have this fabulous panel that's getting ready to start right now. At 10:30, we have our other panel in the room next door on nonprofit record labels, so please keep that in mind. If you're riveted here, definitely stay. If you want to hear what the other panel is doing at 10:30, that's when that one's going to kick off.
These days, all record companies are nonprofit.
Some more intentionally than others.
It's not the way we planned it, but you know.
We're starting already, gang.
You can see we're going to have an engaging discussion.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody is aware that as our thanks to you all for being here and being part of the Sync Up Conference, we have organized a very special, very exclusive hospitality for you all at Jazz Fest. So if you make it out to Jazz Fest, please come and visit the Sync Up Hospitality Lounge. It's located on the 3rd floor of the Grandstand building. So follow the signs to the Music Heritage stage and to Sync Up. If you're walking into the Grandstand building from the track, go down the middle through the breezeway as if you're going to the Lanyap stage. On your left-hand side will be signs for the Music Heritage stage and Sync Up. Follow those stairs, follow those signs. Then when you get to the Music Heritage stage, keep going up to the back of the bleachers and look on your right-hand side. You'll see that we have a little hospitality, and it's open to all of you all, so please take advantage of it. It's open from 1 to 5:30 every day at the festival. All you have to do is present your little Sync Up credential. So that's about it as far as housekeeping for me. I'd like to welcome John Horniak, the director of the Memphis chapter of the Recording Academy, under which Louisiana falls. And I want to personally express my gratitude to John, to the Memphis chapter, to the Recording Academy as a whole for their support of the Sync Up Conference, of this panel in particular, and for everything that they do all year long to promote the music industry. So thank you all very much. Thank you to the Grammys, and thank you, John.
Thank you, Scott. I wanted to take just a minute to, first of all, say thank you to New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation for inviting us to participate, because we very much want to be involved with professional education opportunities, and I think this is a good way for us to sort of combine forces to make this as good as it can possibly be. So thank you very much for inviting us to be a part of this. Just a quick minute to give you a little snapshot of the Recording Academy in case you may not be familiar with us, but we're a member organization. We have close to 20,000 members across the country, and in this region we have close to 1,000 members. And you probably know of us from the annual Grammy Awards, or in this part of the country you also are probably very aware of our Music Heritage Foundation's hurricane relief efforts after Katrina. We distributed about $4 million in aid to approximately 4 million musicians. So, but we're a unique organization in that the success of the Grammy Awards enables us to do a lot of things between the Grammy Awards, a lot of professional education events, which are virtually all free to our members. And events like this we do in many cities across the country. And for the last 10 years, we've been making Louisiana a focus on our outreach. We've been presenting events, programs, community service here on a regular basis. And you know, as a Recording Academy member, you can take advantage of all of those things that we do in the other chapter cities right here in Louisiana. You know, one of the unique things about this chapter, we have a full-time staff member in New Orleans, Reed Wick. Reed, if you're here, stand up. Now, we also have a Grammy University Network student membership that we started just a couple of years ago, and our Grammy U rep from here is Tim Capel. I think, Tim, are you in? Tim is an emerging star in the entertainment law world. He was one of the finalists in our National Entertainment Law Writing Contest during Grammy Week this week. So congratulations to him. I'm pleased to say that membership in Louisiana in the Recording Academy is at an all-time high. And another cool thing, this year we had, to my knowledge, the most Grammy nominees ever from Louisiana. And this week, or this month, there will be 19 Grammy statues delivered to music makers and artists and producers and engineers in Louisiana. So I think that's a big deal. It's not an official statement, but I'm pretty sure that's an all-time high. And you may know that the Grammy you get handed to you on the telecast is not the one you actually get. They're handmade one at a time, and they're shipped by FedEx to everybody. So very pleased that there's so many music makers from Louisiana that will have to find a space on their mantle for a Grammy Award. And we also have the chapter's trustee, one of two trustees on our national board is Cynthia Simeon from Lafayette, and we have Jim Bateman, David Egan, Jerry Goolsby, and Ken Shepard all representing this region on our board. So if you're not already a member, and I see a lot of our members here, please consider that, and we have literature and applications outside. Feel free to talk to Reed or Tim or I after we're finished, and we'd love to get you signed up. As I mentioned earlier, most everything professional education-wise we do for members is free. We have a new website coming in the fall to better connect all the independent music makers across the country. Now I get to introduce the moderator of the panelists today, which is always a cool thing to have that sort of responsibility. You know, and we all learned a long time ago it's all about making connections in this business. And our moderator has built a long and successful career as a music industry marketing professional with an invaluable list of contacts, resources, and credentials. In the old days, you would talk about if you could like steal somebody's Rolodex, hers would be one of the ones you would want to try to steal. Now, throughout her career, she has worked closely with some of the best talent in the music and has shown a unique gift for finding the best avenues to bring that talent to the public's attention. She started her career in retail before landing an internship with Motown. And there she became involved in the power research sessions dubbed the War Room that explored various facets of marketing, artists, and music. So she helped plan strategies for Stevie Wonder, Lionel Richie, Rick James, Smokey Robinson, among others. In 1997, she was tapped to head the Recording Academy's Los Angeles chapter. In 2001, she became the vice president of the Academy's West region. And in November 2003, she was appointed vice president of member services. She continues to foster the Academy's commitment to a mission of service and advocacy on behalf of our members. So please welcome, originally from Mississippi, Angelia Bibbs-Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much. And I'm honored to be here at Jazz Fest. And I will just come right out and say it now. I am a virgin Jazz Fester. I have never attended Jazz Fest, so I'm thrilled that it will be my first time. And coincidentally, you all are celebrating your 40th year. So it sounds like it's going to be a fabulous weekend. I just was able to fly in last night, so I have not yet been out to the fairgrounds, but I'm so excited. So thank you so much for having us, Scott, and we really appreciate being here. Alrighty, before we get started, I typically like to find out who is in the audience so that we can best identify who we're speaking to. I think it helps these gentlemen understand who you are and perhaps what you're interested in. So by show of hands, let's just start by, how many people here are members of the Recording Academy? Okay, so that means that most of you here are working industry music professionals. How many artists do we have? Musicians, instrumentalists, songwriters, producers, engineers? Okay, all right, great. So it sounds like these folks are the people who are actually out trying to make music and actually promote and market their careers. So you're at the right place, and I think that that's where we're going to spend the majority of the hour that we have to share with you to discuss and determine some of the ways that these gentlemen have found to be successful to market themselves. This is meant to be very interactive. So if something comes to mind, if one of them says something that you want to chime right in on, step right up, stand right up, ask the question. We'll stop the discussion and go right to you. We want to make you feel as if you've been heard and that your questions have been answered. Okay, those are the rules. Now we're ready to start the panel. I'm happy and just honored to be sitting to my right is a gentleman who is truly music royalty. As founder of Sire Records, he's responsible for discovering and signing iconic artists like Madonna, Talking Heads, The Pretenders, to name a few. His experiences at Billboard magazine and his work at the Brill Building prepared him for a career that includes bringing new wave music to the masses in the 70s and 80s. Seymour was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2005. He continues to serve as a chairman of that organization and works very hard to promote their initiatives. He's currently a vice president at Warner Brothers Records. And that really, to be honest with you, is the 2-minute snapshot. As you will find, as you get an opportunity to speak with him, he is a wealth of knowledge, has great history, and loves music. I had an opportunity to have dinner with him last night and so enjoyed being able to dive into that. And I hope he brings a lot of that information out to you guys today. And by the way, he loves the state of Louisiana. So you've got a huge fan here, Mr. Seymour Stein.
Thank you.
Okay, now to my left, Josh Rabinowitz. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay, great. He was named top music ad agency executive by the National Association of the Recording Industry Professionals. As senior vice president of the Gray Group, he's responsible for producing music for numerous music advertising campaigns. His work in the advertising world has led to collaborations with artists such as Black Eyed Peas, Smokey Robinson, Run DMC, to name a few. He's written exclusively on the topic of branding and music, including a column in Billboard magazine on the very same subject. He's also a teacher. He teaches at NYU and the New School in New York City. Please welcome Joshua Rabinowitz. Okay, all right. Well, you guys know that music, the landscape of music has been ever-changing. I think when I first started to note that music was taking on a new complexion was probably in the mid-90s, from my perspective. Those of the experts here probably knew that it was coming even before them, but as a person who worked in the music business, I started my career at 2 labels. I worked for Motown, had a great opportunity to work there when Berry Gordy joined the organization. So my education and the foundation of my development in this area was really built on artist development. There was a new school approach. There was a grooming school approach to working with artists at Motown. And so that's where I learned the business, is that it was a small boutique shop. Everybody was hands-on, and every artist there was treated with great care and attention. Certainly the iconic artists that had been there for many, many years. I spent 5 years at the organization before we transitioned out and MCA Universal took over. So that was where I started my career. And then I went to this big giant BMG Music, RCA, where we had lots of cash. Bertelsmann, thank you. We had lots of artists, but somehow the idea of big majors versus small boutique became really apparent to me. And so I want to start with you, Seymour, to talk about, give us your perspective on the major labels and how you approach artist development.
Well, first let me say, Motown was so unique. It was a music factory. You had the producers, the writers, the artists, all under one roof. I mean, it was just incredible. I remember going out there very early on. I think, I was actually present when they recorded "Please, Mr. Postman." I was Berry Gordy's guest. You need the majors need the indies, and the indies need the majors. Every musical trend, every musical genre, with the possible exception of country and western music, was really started by indie labels, whether it was jazz, going all the way back there, certainly rhythm and blues, gospel, dance, punk, new wave, rap, hip hop, all of it, and everything else in between. Indies feed off of majors, and majors feed off of indies. The two can coexist, and the fact that people think that majors are not musical. John Hammond came from one of the greatest men in music. Came and spent his whole life at Columbia Records, which is one of the oldest major record companies. And there are many other like him. On the other hand, you have Ahmet Ertegun and Jerry Wexler at Atlantic Records, the Chess Brothers. The folks at VJ Records, one of the early rhythm and blues black-owned and operated companies out of Chicago, Vivian Carter and Jimmy Bracken. It's you need both.
Let me ask you this, Seymour. From when you first, I know your history is in Billboard, and you were in the music business for a long time before you started Sire Records, but can you talk to me about your approach in terms of artist development and marketing? And is that something that you set your goals on with an artist? What's your approach? How do you get to that point?
To me, the way I look at it, we discussed it a little last night. There's the artist, and then there's everyone else. I actually started in the business while I was in high school. When I was 14 years old, Billboard gave me a job. And I'm still going, thank God. And but with artists, except for those rare artists who can keep on going forever, whether it goes all the way back to Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett, who's here, this weekend. To people like Madonna or Bruce Springsteen, Billy Joel, Bon Jovi, that seem to have endless careers. That's not the case for most artists. Most artists, if they have a 3 or 4 or 5 or 8 or 10-year window, it's a lot. With no disrespect, it's like comparing the rest of us, the songwriters. Irving Berlin was writing into his 90s. It's like comparing a human life with a dog's life, and I mean it not disrespectfully. I mean it with a great amount of reverence and respect. We have to look out for artists. If we make one wrong move, we can finish a career. And I think the most important thing an artist needs is time to develop. It's really, really important. Look, you take the Beatles. They were not overnight sensations. They were rejected in their own country, driven out of their own country. They had to go to Germany, to Hamburg, and with them came other bands like the Searchers and Johnny and Jerry and the Pacemakers and all the others, and that's where they were able to, practice their craft and then come back to England and then become the great icons that they were. And it was repeated, years later. The Sex Pistols and the Clash, they couldn't get arrested in England. I mean, at all. One of the bands was from that same era was the Stranglers, and they had a French bass player, and he had connections, and he had a very good manager too. Forget his name, but the French really were into the whole punk and new wave sound way before the English. Things get confused in the retelling of history, but and they were able to get gigs in France, and that's how they survived. And then when I brought my band over, the Ramones, and the Ramones, I was only able to bring them over to England on the back of another one of my bands, the Flamin' Groovies. And when I landed yesterday at New Orleans Airport, Cyril Jordan who was just played here, the leader of the band, was getting on a plane going home to San Francisco, and it was great seeing him. And I told him that, you know, Tommy Ramone, the sole surviving original member of the band, and I speak of him very often because if they didn't give the Ramones that break, you know, who knows what would have happened. But the Ramones tore the place apart in England, and then all these bands that were semi-pro, like the Sex Pistols and the Clash, you know, they said if they can do it, we can do it. Because I mean, the Ramones, you know, they made it look easy, you know. I mean, you know, you too tell me that, and you know, all the bands, they influence so many other bands. But what we have, I don't want to get straight off the subject or talk too much or hog the microphone here. But
I'm gonna pull you back in.
But the thing is, time. When I signed bands back in the late '60s and '70s, I would try to give them, wherever possible, 3 albums firm. You know, that's virtually impossible today by the state of the music business, you know.
Can I stop you there, Seymour, because you
Sure.
just said something really important. Time, state of the music business, non-existent. That's an example of the change that this industry's undertaken. And I want to read something to you guys just so that I can get my facts straight. CD sales fell sharply again in 2008. But the migration to legal downloads and music streaming gained momentum. This trend will continue to change the way the music is delivered to consumers. Internationally, 2008 saw 25% growth in legal downloads, resulting in sales of $3.7 billion. Still, every legally downloaded song, there are dozens of illegal downloaded songs. So that talks about, you know, it's a brave new world out there. CD sales are down, legal download sales are up, and so we've got a changing landscape. We've got to figure out, with what Seymour's just said about time, how does the music industry, how do record companies, how do folks determine how long to stay with the release? And what's the most appropriate way to get your record out there, which I think ties in nicely to Josh. And I would love for you, Josh, to talk a little bit about your connection to music and tell us something perhaps that relates to this change in the complexion of music and how we distribute it.
Sure. Well, what I do is, my title is Senior Vice President, Director of Music for Gray Worldwide, or Gray Group, a big advertising agency. And essentially what we do is we kind of procure and produce music for advertising. And when I first got into the business about 12, 13 years ago, we really didn't have much of a relationship at all with the record industry. In fact, we were looked down upon, you know. And when I kind of stepped into the business, I was really kind of not sure about it. I was just looking for a job in music and really wanted to deal with music professionally to sustain myself. And I was like, okay, this looks like a pretty interesting thing. Music and advertising. There's lots of studios. There's lots of musicians that are interested in doing it. There's all different styles of music. And it was mainly like jingles, you know. You'd sing a product name, you know. Be a pepper, I'm a pepper, you're a pepper. Be a pepper, we're all peppers. You know, and all kinds of Alka-Seltzer commercials and Oscar Mayer commercials. But slowly and surely what happened is the record industry started to see what could happen with music that was placed in ads. And people were starting to license music a lot more. So instead of creating an original underscore, an orchestral underscore, a little choral thing, or a big band thing, or a jingle, they were starting to license famous pieces of music. And all of a sudden, people like Sting, in order to kind of raise the level and appreciation of his music, and try to get the record sales up, he licensed a song to Jaguar, where he actually, in his music video, had some footage of him in a Jaguar, and they placed it, and all of a sudden, a song that was a dead song just shot up the charts. And other people, interesting things that had happened, Nick Drake, an artist who had been dead for like 30 years, he had a beautiful song called Pink Moon that Volkswagen decided to use. And sales, you know, they were an album that probably sold, I don't know, 5,000 units over a last few, you know, the time previous to when the spot was put out, actually sold 200,000 units. And people were shocked and surprised. And I'm finding that certainly there's been an interesting integration and the concept of selling out kind of slowly has morphed into the concept of selling in. And people are finding now that it's really difficult to get their music out there, and one way of doing it is through branding and advertising. And you know, I've been involved in that now for a long time, and have developed a lot of excellent relationships with artists, with managers, with record labels, and with publishers.
Josh, well, we have a
Can I
question.
ask you a question? I guess hi, I'm sorry, I'm Mary Flynn. I'm a vocalist. I have a band called Jazzy Lady. But it's a unique thing, and local musicians here have known it for years. We do not have agents here. We do not have booking agents. It was even discussed last week on the panel that booking agents don't come here. We've got so much talent, but booking agents don't want to invest in us because there's so many of us, and/or it's not worth their money to do so. So how do we could have the greatest songs in the world and the greatest product. How do we get to people like you? How do we find people like you who would be in our corner? That's our biggest problem.
Can you repeat the
We
question?
have no middleman fighting for us.
First of all, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Mary Flynn.
Mary Flynn. Mary, can
Mary
you?
Flynn.
Mary Flynn. Okay, just want to be clear. Can you stand up, Mary Flynn, and project so that they can hear your question again?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was speaking for all of us and saying that last week we, as many of you know, we had a panel and it's well known in New Orleans. We don't have booking agents. We don't have agents per se or the middleman to help us because they don't want to invest in us because there's too many of us or whatever the reasons. We just categorically, and even last week's panel discussed that. So how do we, without a middleman in our corner, get to people like these people to put out our product and get it actually noticed?
I can give you a short answer that's very self-serving for me, which would be that you should join and get yourself involved with our local chapter efforts here in New Orleans and then in Memphis. So that's the first opportunity, or an easy opportunity for you to participate with other industry professionals like we're doing today. This is an example of the events that we hope to have, and if we're not doing a great job, you've got Reed here in the room, you've got John Horniak, you've got Susan Stewart out of Nashville, who was their regional director. Those are the three individuals that you've got to pull aside and say, listen, give us more. Bring more Seymours to us. Bring more Joshes to us. Bring those people here because first of all, they're very busy people. You can't get on their calendar, but I guess after this panel's over, you can walk right up to Josh, I'm assuming, and try to connect with him, get his business card, drop some music, whatever it may be. Sorry, Josh. So Seymour, do you have a thought on that? On why are talent scouts coming to New Orleans or Louisiana?
I really don't know. Maybe they're not as mobile. Maybe in this day and age where people do everything over the internet, they just don't come. I don't know. I mean, I come to New Orleans religiously once a year to just check out. It's not just New Orleans. You see CC Adcock over there. We go up to Lafayette, and I mean this is, you're living in the cradle of rock and roll, you know, and in jazz too. You know, I pay more attention. I'm a, rock and roll, but people like Lloyd Price. I mean, if I had to pick one artist, if I was on Desert Island Discs, it would be Fats Domino. I mean, I love the man. I mean, he's just the greatest. And look how long it took him. His early records came out in the late 40s. He didn't have a big national hit until 1955 when he did Ain't It a Shame, and it was covered by Pat Boone. And which blocked some of his sales out, but he still sold 1 million records. But I don't know about it. I could tell you, back in the day when I first came in the music business, every independent record label, especially those in R&B, had scouts located here. There was so much going on here. Chess, VJ, King, Liberty, Imperial, Aladdin, and I'm sure the majors did too. Yeah. Atlantic certainly had people down here, and there was so much coming out of this city and the environs.
Well, I wonder then, Josh, from your perspective, are there ways, how do agencies connect with regions like this that feel underserved?
There's many ways we connect. To me, and Seymour's point is certainly that it is a mobile world, it's an internet world, and I think people have to be entrepreneurial about their efforts as musicians these days. It's an all-encompassing activity. It's getting an agent is a good thing, but it's not the only thing, and it's probably not always the best thing. It's having people that are looking into the various media that you can get your music out there and exposed with. Certainly in the advertising world, there are a lot of people that represent people's songs, the rights to the songs. They represent artists, but you have as much access, the same access that they do to me. You can just reach out to me. You can track me down on the internet. You can do the research. Certainly for TV, which is another great way of getting your music out there. There are amazing music supervisors that work on particular television shows. A lot of people may not be a fan of Grey's Anatomy, but it's one of the best ways of getting your music out there. Certainly, TV commercials is great. Gaming is another way. I don't know for jazz music if gaming is the best resource, but you never know. I mean,
Can you submit it to a TV show and they may use it as background?
well, you find out who the people are that are responsible for finding that music, for procuring that music, for producing that music, for licensing that music.
And also for movies.
Same for movies, and movies is great. I mean, recently there's that film Once. I don't know if people have seen it. If you haven't, it's a great movie, and it's a heartfelt movie, and it's a wonderful example of people that were just striving to make their music and how it hits the masses. TV, movies, mobile, gaming, and advertising. That's kind of like the new way of getting your music out there and exposing. And you just really got to dig deep and find it. And everyone has equal access,
You know what comes to mind with this, and we're diving into the discussion now, so I wanted to talk a little bit more about artist development, but it sounds like you're interested in just how do you get exposure as a musician or as an artist. But one of the things that comes to mind is, and Josh, you can tell me, I have no idea, if I'm president of Coca-Cola or I'm the chief marketing executive for, I don't know, Best Buy, when you were working with an advertising agency to determine how we're going to launch a new campaign or what our music area is going to look like in the store, if I'm a decision maker in that process, and I happen to be a fan of Mary Flynn, because Mary Flynn sent me her product to my office, by the way. I'm a president of Coke, or I'm the chief marketing executive of ExxonMobil, whatever it is. And Mary Flynn sent me her CD, and I'm thinking, boy, that's weird, because I don't get CDs typically. Now, if I'm a record guy, you get a lot of CDs. But if you're an advertising executive, or maybe you're a chief marketing officer, you don't get CDs. So now you're curious, so you put it in. And then that person happens to really like this music. Wow, that's interesting.
Then another thing is, you should try to hook up with a music publisher. I always found publishers to be the infantry in terms of music. They find things long before the record companies get to it. This friend of mine in the UK signed Coldplay, and it took her a year and a half to get them signed to a label deal. And then you'd think with that success you'd be respected. She found another band called Keane, and it took a year and a half. And these are two of the biggest bands, not only in England, but in the world. In addition, the licensing societies, ASCAP, BMI, and there's a smaller one called CSAC that might be better, for some people starting out.
That's right.
That could help you.
I saw a hand go up in the back. Do you want to stand and maybe so everybody can hear you?
Yes, I had a question. I guess it kind of mixes artist development with kind of placing individual songs in advertising or movies or music. You'd think if you were sending something to a label, they'd want to hear a collection of great songs so they, be comfortable putting out an album. But for instance, if you're just, using one song for an ad campaign, do you want to receive an album of material, or would someone just send you, I think this song is perfect for advertising, or for a movie or whatnot?
Well, it's a very interesting question. Certainly, I get tons and tons of music, as a lot of people do. And it's situational for me, because I'm not necessarily looking for a particular song at a particular time. Sometimes there's a project that comes up, if I'm doing something for CoverGirl, and we have Rihanna in the commercial, we need a particular song that serves her, and we'll look for that particular style. we'll get a lot of music and file it and kind of like try to categorize it. But what's interesting to me is I've collected music for years and years and kind of have put together a playlist of 20 songs that I think are like the shit, like the best songs. And in my career, I've only been able to license one and get it from point A to point B because it's such a collaborative process. And it's that kind of talks to the point that you really need to be entrepreneurial and get your music to as many different kinds of people as possible. In the advertising process, there's certainly the music producer, the music supervisor. In TV, the same thing, the music supervisor. But there's also the head of the studio. There's also a director. There's also a person that's editing, the editor, who's editing the film together. They all have a say. It's a very collaborative thing, and you really have to touch on all points. But for me, it doesn't matter. I can take a single song, a digital file, I'll take a whole CD, I'll take a collection of music, and I'll listen to it. If there's something that day and there's some synchronicity going on, and I'm looking for something in particular, and it just happens that it's the thing I'm listening to, that's cool. But I will file it away and try to utilize it if there's something that comes up.
Go ahead.
Please. All I could say is, categories can be killers. I mean, when I grew up, there was pop, country and western, and rhythm and blues. That was enough for me. But in reality, there really are only two categories: good and bad. I mean, that's really what it is. I don't, adult, contemporary, AAA, AA. I mean, it sounds like a teacher grading things. I listen to music from all over the world. Right now, my passion to sort of, because what we've lost, and some countries are much, much worse off than the United States. The German business is so down that it has fallen from being the number 3 market. It's been overtaken by France, which is now, the number 4 market. I'm sorry. It's the United States, Japan, England, and then came Germany. Germany is 6th, behind France, behind Italy. It's just, I'm trying to develop India as a market because there's 400 million people there above the poverty line, and they love music, and there are certain artists that go there that make a hell of a lot of money there. Bryan Adams, key among them, a lot of the Latin artists, Enrique Iglesias, and that 400 million is twice the population of record-buying people available in America or Europe. I mean, but I don't want to go. I wouldn't send too much. I'd send 2 or 3 tracks, and if they're, of course, when you see 10 tracks, it almost scares somebody. The other thing is that if they like it, they're going to want more. You'll hear from them damn quick. I'll tell you that.
Let's take what you've just said, and I'll get to you guys in just a second as a follow-up. What are you looking for? Well, you've identified 3 tracks. So when something comes your way, and maybe you can tell all these folks out here, are you looking to sign any new bands? Do you? How do you approach that?
Every day I'm looking, but I'm not looking for any.
Right here, right now.
I don't look for anything in particular. I've signed artists from China, from Japan, from Israel. The band that saved my skin when I was, didn't have any money to keep my doors open, was a Dutch band, and it was a guitarist and a classical flutist who hated each other and were at each other's throats all the time. A band called Focus. I don't know if any of you remember them. I had a platinum record, and it would let off with a song called Hocus Pocus with yodeling and flutes and
So it's
and
possible,
all of that.
what he's saying.
You never know. I had great success with an Israeli artist, a dance artist, who didn't even sing in Hebrew. She sang, if Hebrew wasn't bad enough, she sang in Yemeni, which is a lost language. Her name was Ofra Haza, and we had 2 very, very big records with her.
So what
I've-
he's
you know,
saying is that
you never know
you
where your
never
next hit is coming
So he
from.
will be on the ground here in New Orleans for the next 3 days, and he's signing artists. So please make a connection to him. We had 2 questions from the audience. This young lady here.
My name is Rose Reyes.
Can you stand up, please, and project that way so we can hear you?
Hello, my name is Rose Reyes. I'm the Director of Music Marketing for the City of Austin, Texas. And I'm so happy to be in, I'm also a...
Did you say Austin?
Austin, Texas.
Oh,
Yes.
fabulous.
As many of you know, we have this incredible, we're a mecca for indie artists.
Yeah.
And we are growing them at a very early age. There's this incredible, really phenomenal...
Can you all hear her okay? You gotta have to,
Yeah.
if I had a,
Take my mic.
or maybe one of these mics will work.
Yeah.
You guys will have to step up if you want to use a mic.
I'll talk loud.
Okay.
We have this incredible scene that is happening under...
Okay, all right, we're gonna have to give her a mic. We're gonna have to give her a mic. Is there sound?
Hello?
Take this. Here.
Yeah. You'll probably have to step up here, guys, if you want to ask.
Thank you. This incredible phenomena of under 21 bands that are, there are just hundreds and hundreds of them coming up through our high schools, through our rock band programs. And I guess the question I had is, I heard you all when you said that that musicians need time, and we have these young artists that are gigging, they're recording, they're really wanting to learn about the music business, and I worry about them a little bit because they have very little guidance. They don't have anybody that is really taking them through. And of course, they're in Austin, Texas, so a lot of them come from music families. They are exposed to an incredible diversity in music and in the community. But I guess I wanted advice for the young people that, like I said, we have several hundred young bands that are touring, gigging, and recording in Austin, and I want to help guide them.
Yeah. Well, I might take this since I work for a membership organization that serves the music community, and here's the dynamic that we face when you talk specifically about young musicians. What we find is the young musician who is starting their career, as Josh talked about just a little bit ago, about being entrepreneurial. When you're starting a business, you're focused, you've got blinders on, and all you need, you're just trying to make money. You are trying to get out there and make money. So you are only interested in things that get you from point A to point B, which is to get that gig, finish that record, and actually start and sustain a successful career. That being said, a lot of the times, those musicians and those artists are so focused on being entrepreneurial that they don't stop and take enough time to kind of look around them and say, what other resources that are available to me and how can I be helped? So to your point, having a membership organization like the Recording Academy that has an office in Austin, so I would say if you're not already plugged into Teresa Jenkins, please make sure, I think you probably are, I'm hopefully saying. Excellent.
Participated in the Grammy U.
Good. So we've got 12 chapters around the country for these new artists to connect to do professional development programs and services. That's what we do. When the Grammys are over that one night a year, we are hosting anywhere between 15 to 30 events a year in the markets so that you can connect and get professional development, resources, networking, live music, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say that's one way to hone in, connect with people, but you got to stop and you got to take 5 minutes and write a check to join the organization. It's $100 a year. That's one example for where we've got a full-fledged chapter. Here in New Orleans, it's a little different because we don't have a brick and mortar office. We have Reed, who works out of his home here, but he feeds into Memphis. So you'd have to kind of go into Memphis, or you'd be involved in our Mississippi activities. But also, getting those artists to stop to actually take the time to look to connect, I find is a real challenge. I'm not sure how to help an artist do that.
What would it take? I mean, New Orleans is where it all happened, where it all started. Look, I love Austin. I have great friends there, Charles Attell. I love Memphis too, Elvis Presley. But I mean, it's a disgrace that New Orleans, and not just for New Orleans, Lafayette, Shreveport. There's so much.
Right.
There's got to be a Louisiana chapter here.
Well-
I mean, I hope I don't want anybody to pelt me with anything here.
Yeah, no,
But
no.
the thing is, and nothing against Memphis. You know, you know, it's what a historic city that is. With but you know, Hank Williams has an attack, the father of country music.
Well, let me answer that for you, Seymour.
And you've got Zydeco.
Right.
You've got the greatest rhythm and blues. What
Seymour, there's a well-known joke here in New Orleans among musicians that the only way a New Orleans musician ever becomes known is to leave town and go somewhere else and then come home. That's a
Okay.
well-known fact.
Let's take
Well,
this.
Fats Domino never left home.
Well, let's take this question. Just keep it focused. Go ahead,
I
Steve.
feel like I may get pelted with something, but I wanted to, ask your opinion.
I'm not making trouble.
Oh, no.
People from outside New Orleans, if you thought it's possibly the reason why New Orleans musicians aren't getting national attention is because the city is focused on promoting a certain type of music. We're known for jazz. We have to do jazz music.
Right. Right.
Horn-based music that so far is not caught on nationally with
Right.
the same popularity
Right.
as say rock
Right.
or even country. Do you
Right.
think it's time to broaden, what we consider New Orleans music?
Well, that would be a question for those of you who work in this community and who are leaders in your efforts in the city of New Orleans.
I think people in the music business know what New Orleans is all about. Tourists may come down here to hear jazz, but I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, but I think,
Yeah.
I mean, rhythm and blues has been a tradition here. I mean, Clarence Frogman Henry, all these, I can't see how anyone who knows anything about music really knows and is not
Right.
coming down here for a
Right.
night out on Bourbon Street doesn't know
Right.
what New Orleans is all about. Even in Nashville now, people are discovering, hey, there's a lot of good rock and roll here. Music isn't located, isolated like that.
Let me close the subject if I can, if we can move on. You have a question that relates to this or a new question?
Yeah, I appreciate your fondness for Louisiana music. My question would be, do you have good suggestions for getting Louisiana music out to the rest of the world? Some suggestions or something. We do have a lot of local music here. We got like a barrier, technological, managerial barrier. What are some of your suggestions for getting it available to everybody?
Well, certainly what I alluded to before is the entrepreneurial aspect. And I really feel the power is with the people. Chuck D has said it in this whole digital revolution. The music business is completely changing. And certainly the old model of the record business is morphing into something else. A lot of record businesses are claiming now that they're media companies. They're not necessarily trying to make all their money off monetizing the sales of records, but they're also getting involved in these 360-degree deals. And it's shifting, and nobody really knows where it's going. And it's a whole, it's insane. And what it has given is the power to the people. And the people, every musician, every artist, every horn player, every drummer, everyone has the power to reach out and connect. And you have to do the research in terms of how to connect. Certainly New Orleans, I've heard that before, where people leave town to try to be more successful. And it's ridiculous. But now the opportunity is you don't have to leave town to connect with like the head of a label or the head of a brand or the head of a gaming company or the head of a television network. You really don't. You just have to meet them, make that connection, make sure the music's good, and just work on that relationship. And it really is a business of relationships. It always has been. It's just the distribution is different now. And because that model has shifted, I think it's an advantage to everybody.
And I have a quick follow-up to that, if I may. Seymour, do you want to add something?
No,
before we
I
go?
just want to. One thing that would help, especially if times were better, and they will get better. The record business is fractured; it's not over with. And what happened, which I don't think we have time to go in. It's just my opinion. Started happening over 50 years ago. It's the roots of where we're in today happened a long time ago. But there used to be local record companies here, Rick Records, Ron Records, Minute Records. I mean, there was a place to go, and that would be if someone could get somebody, to start. one of the things that really helped get Austin off the ground was a little label, a guy that you know is a hero, Clifford Antone. Antone's Records. He had a club. He found the artists, and some of them he signed and recorded.
Right.
He may not even have paid royalties too well, but the thing is that didn't matter. He gave them an outlet. It was like, you know, where they could reach out. And the same thing happened down here many years ago. You know, and it should happen again now.
I wanted to follow up on the idea of, you know, how do you get, first of all, we've discussed, you know, some of the challenges that you have in terms of how to get exposed, but let's say you do get exposed. And I guess, Josh, I would be interested is, how do you determine if somebody sends product to you or sends something, what's your selection process? How does it work? How can we take Mary Flynn's music and get it into the next Coca-Cola campaign?
Well, if I worked on Coca-Cola, I would definitely consider it, but I don't work on Coca-Cola. Here's an interesting case. I had two clients that were supposed to come down, but they weren't able to, for a liquor brand, and they're looking to utilize local musicians in locales for a certain style of branding, and what I've been asked to do is just kind of search and find music for it. Now, it's always a situational thing. It's not like I can predetermine like 6 months from now, like this particular case, that something's going to be happening. It's always been that way, and I think it's always been that way in music. It's really hard to just bust through, but if you have terrific music, it's going to get through. It really is going to get through.
Well, let me ask you this. You're doing the new L'Oreal campaign. It's got Ellen DeGeneres in it, or it's got Beyonce or Queen Latifah. I can't remember which company those are. Does it have to be a Latifah record that gets sponsored? Is it source music? Can there be an artist who's a music artist but also features somebody else's music in it?
Certainly. I mean, we use Rihanna. She's a cover girl. Cover girl is one of my brands. We use Queen Latifah. Sometimes we use Rihanna's music. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we use Latifah's music. Sometimes we don't. She did a jazz record, and we wanted to use some of her jazz music. She's actually an excellent performer, Queen Latifah. Dana Owens is her real name. Mm-hmm. And we used one particular song that was created specifically for the brand called Every Woman is a Queen. But we're always looking for different things, and certainly there's no prescribed way of doing it.
Alrighty. And then I'm going to take you, may I just ask to Seymour, because I want to try to make sure we have some real discussion about artist development and how important that is. Keeping in mind entrepreneurship is critical. But
I think what we're discussing now is just as important.
Okay.
Because, I mean, if you can't get signed,
right,
then you can't do no development.
Well,
you
let
know,
me ask you
I mean,
this.
you're putting the cart before the horse.
Let me tell you what my question was going to be to you is, from a major label perspective, how prepared or polished does an artist need to be before you might even consider giving them a record deal?
Polished?
Yeah.
Polished?
Do they have to know what they're going to look and feel like? Do we have to?
I don't care what they look and feel like. It's all about one thing, the songs.
Yeah?
That's it.
Okay.
I mean, look, Meatloaf, he's no beauty.
Yeah.
You know,
But
come on.
But Meatloaf has a thing that he does. You cannot deny that Meatloaf is on stage and the way he's dressed, and he's going to take that
Fine.
bat head. That's all part of it.
It's all about the music. It's all about the songs. That's what people,
right,
when you think back to where you were 20 years ago, your first this, your first that, it's a song.
Right.
Look, the music business, I mean, the music business is not going away. Music is not a luxury. It's a necessity. It's part of our lives. It's our soundtrack. I mean, it's just, we made mistakes. Not me. I'm innocent. In the 1950s, when albums started to take off, the music business became a big business, and the companies who had started not as record companies, the companies you know as major labels started as phonograph companies. They were more in the furniture business almost than anything else. The Victor talking machine company, it became RCA Victor. The Columbia phonograph company. EMI wasn't called EMI, that's a relatively new name. the gramophone company, Deutsche Grammophon, the German gramophone company, Pathé Marconi, that was the big French company. They made phonographs. They stopped making them. And because of that, they lost control of the hardware that came down the line eventually. And that's why you have this situation now with so much music going out free. And that's what the problem, that is my view. I mean, I don't know if it's shared by anybody or many people, but it'll work itself out. Maybe not in my lifetime, but it'll work itself out. This is just hard times, but there will be a music business.
Why don't we go to the Q&A segment, because we've got about a half an hour left in discussion. So I'll take the gentleman up front and then the gentleman in the back. Just a sec. Go ahead. And do you guys want to use the mic, or how do you feel about that? Do you want to? I'll take mine out of the stand here. So if you want to line up near the front, that might help, guys, because then we can get everybody's question heard. How about that? There you go. Don't worry about it. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Frank Alquist, and I own a recording studio here in town called the Music Shed. And these problems that we're talking about as far as New Orleans music have been here for a long, long time. And it's not about the talent or the music itself. We have to get ourselves in shape with the business of music, meaning right when you write the songs, you need to start thinking about the songwriters, who's making the music, how are all these things going to go down, and start generating contracts and things, because what's going to happen is when Josh goes to buy the music, he's going to want to know what the deal with it is. And if he can't purchase the music because it's tied up and the business wasn't done properly, then there's going to be lawsuits and problems, and that happens one time, and he doesn't go back here anymore. So I think that's the thing we really need to talk about and work on.
That's a great comment, because licensing music is critical. I mean, you want to talk a little bit about that, Josh, and we'll go to your question next as a follow-up about how accessible the music is?
Yeah, I mean, most times I ask people to create original pieces of music. I'd say most of what I do is I'm hiring a composer or an artist to create an original piece of music for us, and then what we do is we ask them to give us the publishing on behalf of our clients, and they keep their writer share. So that's most cases. Then the other cases, which is about 40%, is licensing. And sometimes it's really hard to, we'll find a track that we really like, and it's written by like 6 people, and there's maybe a sample in there or something that we can't clear, and then we just have to pass up on it. In terms of the corporate world, you're open to a lot of liability, and everything has to be airtight, and that's a very valid point. If it's not airtight, we're screwed, and we don't want to put ourselves in a position of liability. We also don't want to license songs that sound like something else. Certainly in popular music, it's kind of flattery if you write something that sounds like somebody else. It's considered like you've been influenced by somebody. But if somebody submits a piece of music that sounds like somebody else's music and it's used in an ad, people will come after a corporation and try to sue. So it is really something extra to think about as well.
All right, why don't we take the next question? Just state your name.
Hi, my name is Dixie Taylor. I'm a singer out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I perform under the name Dixie Rose. If y'all don't know about the Cutting Edge Music Conference that happens every year in New Orleans, you ought to learn about it. If you don't have the $100 or something that it costs to go to the conference, then why don't you submit your music as a showcase that costs $25, and then you get to go to the conference for free. I am an attorney as well as a performer, so I catch all of my music, CLE, Continuing Legal Education, there at the conference. And I meet the attorneys who handle the music business from all over the country. So it's another way of hitting the music industry from the top down. There is also a film conference that's in conjunction with Cutting Edge, and I've been fairly successful by meeting little budding film writers and putting my music into their films. They might be baby filmmakers, but they're going to grow. And once they grow, they're going to remember me, because I was there at the beginning when they weren't anybody. But they met me when I wasn't anybody either. Now, a question, because we needed to hit all that stuff, is that y'all were supposed to be talking about artist development. With the fracturing of the music business, with all of the digital stuff, it basically puts every single artist as a position of a little baby recording label, little indie label, boutique artist label, whether they recognize it or not. So you have to act like a label. But the problem is that if you are the artist, there's really nobody on the outside looking at you saying, well, we need to develop you this way. We need to package you this way. This is a little piece that we're missing because we're all out there dancing in the dark.
Right. Well, let me ask, I guess I would ask Seymour to comment on that, but the question is, are you asking then, perhaps, how do you build your team? Because if you're a little boutique record label, little tiny label, and you're the artist, so you're the creative music maker, and how are you who else have you engaged in partnership to be your manager, to be, and you maybe don't have to pay that person, because their partnership sometimes means sweat equity. But Seymour, what's your thought on building your team and being the artist and the business person?
I think pretty much of what I've said just a few minutes ago. I think everything in the beginning is built around a song or a group of songs. The songs, you know, I mean, I know some of the best artists never wrote, you know, but that's not the way it is today. I think it all starts with the songs, and you've got to be able, if you've got a great song is undeniable. I mean, only, you know, if somebody can't hear a great song, then you don't want to be with them. There must be publisher, there must be some way, someone you can reach, you know, someone who can champion you and take you to the next step and the next step. I find publishers very good at that. Publishers are like the infantry of the music business, and they get the act signed very often before the record companies, you know.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take another question, please.
I don't need the mic.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Renee Andre. I have a small label, small indie label, and I'm also an artist. My first question to you, Ms. Bibbs-Sanders, from an indie perspective, as far as marketing an artist, is there a standard formula that you use with each artist on a small or medium budget, i.e., targeting an area, calling music directors at stations, what kind of posters and print do you use? Is there a standard with each artist you're going to use when you on your label that you're going to formula you're going to use marketing your artist?
Well, I haven't been, as a disclaimer, I haven't been on staff at a major label in many, many years or in a label environment. So I'm sure, as we just talked about the landscape of music changing, it evolves and changes all the time. I would have to say, if you ask me, just as somebody who's got a little bit of knowledge in this community, is that those decisions have to be made on a case-by-case basis.
Absolutely.
And if you're an artist, if you're looking at a label, you've got 3 artists perhaps, or maybe it's just you're trying to market, you have to look at what is your message and how are you going to get that out? And Seymour talked about the song. What is the song going to be about? Who are you trying to reach? How are you going to find those people? And your campaigns or your strategies have to be multifaceted. I'm going to play live anywhere anybody will hear me. I think I have this song that might be best suited for this movie. So I'm going to find out, I heard, everybody watches Entertainment Tonight. Everybody reads you should get the trades. If you don't have the trades, know what's going on. If there's a movie that's being made here in town, and you can go down to the set and hang out with Justin Timberlake or Sam Jackson or whoever, or the director Craig Brewer in Memphis, who's all over MTV right now. Go up to his office and make sure you leave him a tape when you're in Memphis. Drive up there. So what I'm saying is in my opinion, there is no one formula. I think it's all case by case, and it depends on what the music is, who are you trying to reach, and I say think outside the box, be creative.
What if the artist has the look? And then the second artist, as myself, I decided 4 years ago to do something. I'm 48 years old. I don't have the look. I got a small belly. It's like, but my music is good.
Right.
My music says something.
Right.
But do I put more emphasis on the gimmick when I market me compared to somebody with the look?
What gimmick?
That I come with a story as well.
Yeah. I guess,
Come with the music.
Yeah, I guess
You
what he's
come
saying is
with
the music,
the music.
is good.
And if someone, look, I don't think, it's a youth business.
Definitely.
I'm 67 years old, I'm still hanging in here. So, but let's say they love your song, okay? But they don't think you are an artist, and they want to give it to somebody. Let them have it, do it. Look,
That's key.
you know, there was a songwriter about 40 years ago, couldn't get a deal. The only person who recorded him was an old black blues singer, okay? Victoria Spivey on her little label, Queen V Records, okay? But then Peter, Paul, and Mary heard one of his songs, and the Byrds heard another one of his songs, and Cher heard another one of his songs. Do you know who I'm talking about? Bob Dylan. Okay? You got to start where you can start. All right? So that's what it is. Look, you know, everything you hear about these overnight sensations, that's bullshit. Okay? You know, overnight sensations are years in the making. Okay, like the Beatles, I was just telling you. Look, you know, just if somebody likes some part of you, but not all of it, it's a compromise, okay? So you put part of your career on hold. That's all.
Yeah, and I may
That's
also.
that's just advice. I'm not, you know.
Right. I may also, and Josh, you can jump in if you've got a suggestion for him, but use the internet, viral marketing, get on somebody's buzz page, let some, you know, send it to some of those bloggers. Let somebody else go online and say, listen, I just heard this new, you know, piece of music by this person. You got to listen to it. And you'll find the internet is a whole new way to get yourself out there and be heard without putting very much effort out. I want to get to all the questions, guys. So
in country music, this went on forever. Bill Anderson wrote all the great Ray Price songs, you know, never made a record, and then he made a record still. It went right to #1. He had a career as a recording artist. You know, it's never, you know, Willie Nelson, perfect.
Let's get the next question asked.
My name is John Valdispino. I'm a songwriter. I'm looking into writing commercially, so I'll probably harass you for a business card later. Sure. And my question is, I know the big thing with the entrepreneurial spirit and the internet, which you've been hammering, is web presence. And the big thing I've been noticing is that with all the social networks and how they're evolving currently, you know, MySpace, which you didn't have a band unless you had a MySpace, is currently dying, and now it's just kind of like a circle jerk for musicians constantly adding each other to see who can get the most friends by the end of the day. Then Facebook never really took off. There's Pandora, but you know, that's either hit and miss whether somebody finds your music on there. You know, you have to have your own website. Like, what way would you like really recommend getting your music to industry professionals? You know, like there's Taxi, the artist thing where you can connect with everybody. Is there like a network that somebody's actually using, or if there's something you want to get to?
YouTube is a good one. Do you ever want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to hammer in the entrepreneurial thing, because I think the way things are, there's not a definitive way of exposing your music anymore. It's not like a system. It's not like you get signed, then you develop, you try to get on radio, you try to get a music video, etc. It's definitely different. And you can connect with as many people as possible, and that's going to be the way that you help yourself. I think if you try to find just one model that's going to, like, you know, somebody that's just going to hold your hand and take you to the promised land, I think you're in trouble. There isn't one way of doing it. You know, there are artists that are breaking through commercials. There are artists that are breaking through video games. There are artists that are breaking, you know, because they're out there playing live for like 20 gigs a month, and they're getting hammered and they're getting paid a pitcher of beer, you know. I've been through that before. I really think that, you know, there's not one specific way. MySpace certainly is fading. Facebook is faded. But social networking is never going to fade. Social networking and mobile networking and Twittering, I mean, that's what's going on, and that's how people are connecting, you know?
Yeah, and it's something you also said earlier in the discussion, Josh, about relationships and making relationships work. I mean, there are two people, and I keep hammering the Recording Academy because that's what I know, and that's my sweet spot. But Reed Wick, you know, if he's not your best friend, What's going on, Reed? We need to have more here. Are you going to bring this person here? I'm going to contact Reed. We need a chapter. You know, this is your connection back to the Grammy organization. John Horniak. Hey, John, what's going on in Memphis this month? I'm going to go up, have lunch with John. He's going to introduce me to Craig Brewer. Craig Brewer is across the street from the chapter. I can drop my music at Craig's office while I'm there. Maybe I can get lucky and go to the set. Now I'm hanging out with Craig Brewer, who's making a movie about Charlie Pride, and I've got a song that would be perfect. I mean, that's what it's all about, relationships, making relationships work. And so again, finding out where your resources are and using those resources to connect. Make sure you go to the music conferences. South by Southwest, critical. Austin, Texas, doing a big thing. The conference is happening this weekend, critical. The NAMM show, the CMJ conference, Winter Music Conference, the Billboard Latin event. I mean, there's lots of gatherings of music
and there are also places internationally, in the city in Manchester, England. There are where seeing an American is
a rarity.
still something of exciting, and I kind of disagree with you guys in one thing. You can go and try to find as many people as to support you and everything, but if you have one champion, that's enough.
No,
I mean,
agree.
and mentors and people like that who can help guide you. Sometimes if you have too many, I mean, it can get very confusing and out of hand, and no two people are going to tell you the same thing, and they're both right.
Right. Well,
but it can drive you nuts.
Well, that was the premise of this discussion, was artist development, and how do you determine what your path is going to be, and who do you need to help you to get there. And one of the things that we asked Seymour very early on was just about establishing a path and determining how are we going to image this artist, what is their message going to be, how are we going to get the artist broken. Well, that's a mentor, that's a manager, that's a record label, but knowing what your conviction is and making a commitment to the music and sticking with it, I suppose, don't you think, Seymour? Because it's time.
Truthfully, I mean, I hope you don't think any less of me. I never told my artists, except in very rare occasions. I mean, they know what best, the way they should look and the way they, I mean, in one market in England, they used to put so much emphasis on the clothes people wore and this and that. It's about the music.
Right.
That's what it's about, and only about the music. That's what, you can. It's like, you're in the advertising business. There was a company, it's still there, that made tuna fish, Starkist, I think it was called, and they had as their guy Charlie Tuna, and he would get dressed up in a tuxedo and comb his fins and brush himself up, and he got caught, and he would always get thrown back. And they would say, Charlie, we're not looking for fish, for tuna that tastes that with good taste. We're looking for tuna that tastes good, and that's what it is. I mean, I don't.
One more question over here.
I don't put much stock in the rest of it. Everything else you can learn, you can acquire, you can get people behind you.
Right.
But first, get to that point where people want you.
That's critical.
That's the music.
We've got two questions. The gentleman with the glasses. I think we've got a microphone now that you can walk up and just speak into, the one on the end here. And then Tim, Wayne, you want to ask a question? Okay.
My name is John Alphone. I'm actually a filmmaker, so thanks for letting me come here. I like Miss Mary Flynn's question, so this also obviously applies to music. I'm at the point in my career where I'm trying to figure out how much time I need to spend in Los Angeles. And I was recently there, and I was actually very impressed with their music scene. I thought it was amazing. They had a lot of people from all of the regions, Austin, Oklahoma, New Orleans, etc. So they have a very strong regional balance there. I guess the question is, how much time do filmmakers like myself, even though our state is doing very well, the Louisiana Economic Development, we're now ranked the #3 state for film production, but still above the line decisions are made there. And obviously with music, many recording contracts for major labels are still made in Los Angeles, New York. How much time does someone like myself and any musicians in here need to live out there?
Yeah, because I'm not in the film industry, so if you're a filmmaker, I guess one would say.
It's
maybe
all
you
the
have-
it's all the same. I mean, I think.
What's your thought?
I don't think it. I mean, I don't think it matters. I mean, I think I address it to the music side of things. Okay, I have a colleague who heard about a band, and they were playing in a little town yesterday or the day before yesterday, outside of in Pennsylvania. He had to take 3 planes to get there, get off at Harrisburg, rent a car, and drive in the middle of the Amish, area to see this band. But he liked what he heard, and he liked what he saw when he got there. Doesn't matter. If you want something, we'll go there. I mean, I opened up the NME one morning many years ago. That's the New Musical Express. And I read that a friend of mine, who's actually he was more of an acquaintance then, had started working with a real band. Prior to that, he had made his own records and put them out, and I put them out in the United States. And the name of the band was Depeche Mode. And I saw I still had time to take the Concorde, which was quite extravagant back then for me to do. I got there, I saw the band, I loved them, and I signed them. I mean, most people who are real music people, and I would say film people too, will go anywhere. I mean, excellence is so rare. I mean, people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my daughter is a documentary maker, and sometimes I wish she wasn't, but she, because it's a very hard life, and I think it's harder for a girl. She's been doing it now since she got out of college. Her new film was accepted by the Tribeca Film Festival. It's about CBGBs, and it's doing well. I got fingers crossed she might get it, but it's a hell of a life, I mean, and she's all over. Her first film was about this record company, Fat Possum Records, down in Mississippi. You saw it? Oh, well. But I'm not trying to plug her or anything. I'm just saying, look, you know something, it's not, if we were normal people, we'd all do something else, okay? I mean, let's face it, we're all a little crazy here, like Seal says, all right? And, I mean, but you do what you do.
I'm just going to do a quick time check.
I don't think location is that important, but you might have Josh, what do you think?
I comment about it. It's interesting because a lot of people do move to LA and they move to New York, and they're trying to make their fortune as studio musicians. I deal with a lot of studio musicians, and certainly we'll work on tracks that recently I did something for Bell South, and Bell South wanted to do something about the city of New Orleans, and they said, why don't you just record it up in New York, and we'll use some. There's great musicians in New York. They're the best musicians.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, they are, but that's not the real deal. And there's great musicians. Some of the best musicians in the world are in New Orleans. Let's come down here, and we did. We decided to come down and use the real thing. And I think people are really interested in using the real thing. Not always, but for the most part they are. And people will go wherever they need to go to make it sound as legitimate as possible.
Great. We only have a few minutes remaining, so I want to take these last 3 people that are standing. Do you want to come up and speak at the mic, or do you need it?
Not really. But
Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Felice Guimon. I'm a local singer and struggling artist like most of us. And part of what my intent is with my music and with what I do is to keep everyone mindful that we have just experienced, and I'm not using it as an excuse, but the worst catastrophe in the history of this country.
Right.
We are poor. I cannot afford to go to certain places and drive to this place. I mean, we're struggling to have a place to live. And the reality is that since it's been 3 years, people think that everything is back to normal.
Sure.
And it is very terrible. And I think it would be a shameful, shameful oversight on the whole artist and cultural realm of this country if they let the talent, we have so much talent here. I see a man riding on his bike to the store. If he got off his bike, he's one of the best tenor opera singers you want to hear. Right. Talent is abundant here. Right. Everyone in here, I can promise you, is either related to somebody in the business. You can't escape it. What concerns me is the availability of the resources, not financial, just support. Right. That we need to utilize the types of things that you guys are talking about, the Recording Academy and things, and people have been wonderful towards, I know me personally, from the storm, I've gotten a lot of help from people who are advocates for music and culture here. Yeah. But I'm a realist, and you know, like I feel the passion I know these other artists do. We just want to put our music out. I promise you, it's all probably good. We just need some support. And what I'm imploring from you all, because you all are directly connected to the people who can move and shake, let them know we need help, and we need people who, and I personally will be willing to help do my part to make it happen. But it would just be so remiss if we allow the talent and the beautiful sounds that Katrina, when it washed away, it opened up all of these other musical sounds that are coming from us, you know. And so I'm just imploring for you guys to talk up, not that you aren't, but just to consider us, because we really, really still have a long way to go. We really do.
It's a disgrace.
Well, we actually, as the Academy, has made a commitment, and that's why Reed remains in this community, to continue to keep dialogue and connection back to our organization. And you've seen the Recording Academy make a commitment to feature, you know, musicians of Louisiana on our show most recently. As John pointed out, we're giving out more Grammys than ever. We are committed to this city, to this state, and we're stepping up our efforts even at our most visible time of the year. So just know you have a Recording Academy commitment. Again, resources are always an issue. We don't have the ability to build and put a infrastructure in place, but I think your point is well taken that this industry should rally together around music and film and continue to keep the hope and the legacy alive. I want to be, unless you have a question, I would love to be able to take one or two more so we can close the panel. I know you've been waiting very patiently, Wayne. Go ahead.
Absolutely. I have more of a statement than anything else. My name is Wayne Lelo. I actually live up in Nashville now, but I was moved to Nashville from Seattle to open up Ticketmaster's Artist Relations team, which was the first time Ticketmaster ever had like a vested interest in what artists' real needs were, right? How they tap into Ticketmaster's global infrastructure and really build sales and marketing tools and really allow artists to kind of tap into that piece. The reality of the world is that they had to restructure, and I was laid off back in February, right? Out of great adversity, as you all know, comes amazing opportunity. You know, Josh's been talking a lot about entrepreneurial spirit and sort of having to take ownership of your life and your world and your art. And so I helped launch an artist development company called One Revolution Entertainment. And our development platform is really built on a direct-to-fan strategy, right? You all, in some way, shape, or form, have people who are invested in you as artists. That might be 20 people, it might be 1,000 people. What our platform, and what, as you will continue to see this moving forward, is that the relationship with your fans, those people who might show up once a week to see you play or once a month, that is the absolute most crucial relationship that you can ever have. You need to really massage that and engage those people in a meaningful conversation, bring them into your creative life, because those are the people that are going to give you the foundation to allow you the time, the resources, and the creative energy to continue on, right? And so as you build this direct-to-fan strategy, well, I absolutely respect and adore your story, Mr. Stein, and sort of the idea that that it's about the music and that you are open to signing anything that's good. I also realize that the future of the label industry as it is, getting a deal for my artists is not necessarily the best thing for us anymore. I want to do a partnership because I can get global distribution and get into places that I can't get by myself. But my #1 strategy is to build real momentum around my artist touring. I want to have a story to tell when I come to someone like you and say, listen, you don't have to start from ground zero. My guys are touring regionally. They've got a circuit in Texas. They're doing things within 4 to 6 hours of New Orleans, and I've got real momentum on my own. I've got 10, maybe 15,000 people that I can talk to at any one moment. And when I put out a record on my own through my own.com, there are tools, a million tools out there that are completely inexpensive that you can have your own .com as your hub and use widget tools as sort of your spokes. Have your brand and your music available wherever your fans are. Social networks may not be, MySpace may not be sort of that hub as a discovery place anymore, but your fans still live and interact and share in that space. As fans, they still have that communication between each other. Empower them, give them the tools to be able to sell on your behalf, and then reward them in some interesting way or fashion. But for us, it's about artist development. For us, it's not necessarily about how do you look, you know, what are the right songs to put in your catalog. It's part label in the idea of discovering and recording music, but then distributing that and selling that through very different sort of more forward-thinking channels.
That's
Sounds great. It sounds like you've got a bridge there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, I think it's a great idea. I know a few other people who are doing it, but I don't think there's enough of it, and I salute you.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. And what we've seen is the gaping hole, right? What labels used to do, be able to buy you time to become an artist, to develop your own plan. We're trying to step in now and try to be that bridge, absolutely, and then turn them over to other folks. So there is hope. Find the fans, have a conversation that's meaningful to them, and you'll be able to monetize those folks.
Well, I think what you just pointed out is excellent.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Can I have your card?
Excellent.
I just asked for my card.
Okay. Now, so we could spend a whole nother hour just talking about the model he's described and diving into it. So I would encourage you guys to meet Wayne after it's over and find out about it. Mary Flynn has said she has one question that she has to ask. So, well, this will be our last question, and then we're going to have some closing
This
comments.
is short, but someone in this room panel is lucky enough, say, to get their song accepted. And my question is, how does an artist, if they're that lucky, get a portion, or whatever you call it, royalties, as opposed to here's your $100, go away, and when it goes to the top, we keep the rest of the money? How do you get royalties when you're an unknown, but you find, I give you my song, you say, oh my God, this is the best thing, or Seymour says that, and I say, oh, thank you, and they say, here's your $100, I want royalties. How do we do that?
Well, certainly, if you're going to give someone your song, make sure it's registered.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing the premise that we've copyrighted and done all the right things, but then it's the negotiation side.
So there's certainly that aspect. If you're going to be performing on something that's broadcast, and it's done through the unions, you're going to be able to get residuals. And residuals is a very nice way of making a living.
Yes.
The people that sing on commercials, they make a ton of money. And basically, every time, if it's done union, if it's done as a buyout and non-union, you're not, the union's not going to look after you, and people are just going to pay you like a fee and just say that's it. If it's done union, if you're a musician who performs, you're not a singer, it's through the American Federation of Musicians, and there's a local here, there's a local everywhere. You get a certain scale fee for your time, and then you get residuals every 13 weeks as a musician. As a singer, every time this thing is on the air, you're going to make some money. And it's pretty tasty money. If it's on network, if you are singing on a commercial, like a Clairol commercial or a Procter, a major packaged good commercial, you can make very significant money, and there's a lot of benefits to that as well. If you do it union. If you do it outside union, there's a lot of things that are non-union. You want to negotiate to the best possible way you possibly can.
So having a lawyer, I suppose, as an advisor or somebody to help you navigate those waters is
Definitely
critical.
you need an advisor. I don't know if
Yeah.
I always recommend a lawyer, but you definitely need an
Yes,
advisor.
you're right.
Oh,
Okay.
my goodness. All right. Well, listen, folks. First, I think the conversation has been engaging, and I hope you guys found that you got something out of this, and we really appreciate it. I want to give these two gentlemen, I've just been so pleased to certainly have met Mr. Stein and had an opportunity to just give you a few minutes if you want to close with any comments.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, and I hope it's been helpful. It's a very look. You've got to understand, and I think you do. You just have to walk outside this door or any door. We're living in very rough times. I have to say that what's happened in Louisiana in terms of Katrina is a disgrace. As I mentioned about India, I go to India once or twice a year, and the hotel I stay in Mumbai is the Taj. The Taj was destroyed. They've got it. They're working on it. It'll be. They've got one wing opened and rebuilt. I mean, if India can do it, I mean, there's something wrong. I mean, I'm not, a conspiracy kind of person, but there's something's not right about how long it's taking to get New Orleans back on its feet. I think there's a reason that they don't want a lot of these people coming back. Maybe to change a balance in parties or something, and I don't know what it is, but it's a disgrace. And this is one of America's great cities, and not just for the music. It's an important city,
Thank you. I think, if I may, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sorry. No, interrupt.
Josh, any closing comments from your side?
Yeah, I mean, for me, New Orleans is a very special place. In 1989, I rolled into New Orleans, and my band opened up for Toots and the Maytals at Tipitina's, and Charles Neville was in the crowd, and he was one of my idols, the Neville brothers and the Meters. And I went up to him, and I slept on the floor of my friend John Grow. You guys know Papa Gross Funk, on his floor with my band of 10 people in a small one-bedroom apartment. And I experienced the city, and it stayed with me forever. And I come back every year, and I really try to engage in the culture and in the music and try to do as much work here as I possibly can. And, I'm committed to that. And I think a lot of people are, and people that know about music really are committed to this city, and they understand what it is all about. And it is a disgrace. What happened. It's ridiculous, but things are changing, and the government is changing as well. And I'm looking forward to. I'm very hopeful.
Well, thank you
Me
all,
too.
and thank you specifically to the New Orleans Jazz Fest, and for having us. Thank you.